I was at Sundance 2021 online on the internet. That's how I watched the movies, through my computer. I'm gonna keep talking about the movies from worst to Betsy. Here we go. One of the films I saw was 8 for Silver, directed by Sean Ellis. This is basically a 19th century werewolf movie, kind of. There are a lot of other paranormal aspects at play, so it's kind of a mishmash of a bunch of different things. Some of these elements work really well, and others do not. The beginning of the film feels like kind of a campy, fun gore horror movie that doesn't take itself too seriously, but after the intro, it's clear that this film is aiming to be pretty serious, and despite this, it is still surprisingly competent overall in many ways. Most of this film is actually surprisingly well shot. The color and lighting look very professional, and there was one single take shot in this film with a lot of action and coordination that was really awesome. There's definitely a lot of talent that went into the filmmaking here. However, there are quite a few elements that still greatly hold this film back. There are quite a few jump scares in this film. There are also quite a few annoying editing decisions. There's some really unconvincing old age makeup. There are lots of really annoying conveniences with dumb character decisions and irritating horror tropes. There's some really terrible CG that made me wonder whether or not this is an unfinished festival cut of the film. Unfortunately, all of these negative elements become more frequent and more pronounced as the film goes on, which is really disappointing because there was quite a lot to appreciate as well. There was some good music and atmosphere at points. There were some good horror concepts and deaths that were both interesting and disturbing. Long story short, this movie was engaging enough for me to stick with it until the end, even if it left a bad taste in my mouth by the time it was finished. I really wanted to love this movie despite how progressively stupid it got as it went along. The ending was stupid and disappointing. Anyway, check this one out if you want, but I doubt I'll ever be seeing this one again. The elements that I did like were strong enough to make me want to check out this director's other films and see what they're like. Anyway, I'm giving this one a 4 out of 10. It's closer to a 5 than a 3. Another film I saw was In the Earth by Ben Wheatley. I'm gonna keep this one pretty short because I don't have a lot to say about it at all. I have seen 4 of his films now and have not been impressed by any single one of them. On a positive note, this is probably the most inoffensive film I've seen from him in terms of quality. Unfortunately, it's just pretty boring. There were some good performances in this film and it was relatively well shot, but unfortunately the story was really uninteresting and I did not care about the characters one bit. The most engaging part of the film was towards the end when there was a fun and well-edited sequence, but unfortunately he just did the same shit he did in A Field in England. He's just doing the same old shtick and it's kind of boring at this point, and unfortunately having one engaging sequence in the film doesn't save the entire experience for me. Anyway, if you're a fan of Ben Wheatley films, then check this one out and you'll probably enjoy it. If you've seen his other films and didn't like them, then probably avoid this one. And I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. Another film I saw was a German, Italian, Danish film called Human Factors. This is a film about a home invasion and its impact on a middle-class family. There are quite a lot of elements in this film that make it difficult not to compare this to Michel Haneke's Funny Games. I wouldn't call it a ripoff, but it does feel a bit inspired at points. Unfortunately, this similarity winds up unintentionally highlighting parts of the film that might not be as noticeable otherwise. There's a droning tone in the soundtrack that's pretty subtle, but somehow manages to be fairly annoying. Still, the atmosphere of this film is mostly effective. There are some nice single-take oneer shots that I really enjoyed. It's a very nice-looking film that has some interesting shots and is generally well-framed. There's a really great sense of tension in this film, but unfortunately, as it goes on, it just slowly dissipates. The sequence of events in this film is non-chronological, and much of it is just showing the same event over and over again, but from different perspectives, which would be really interesting if there was some sort of significance towards the event or the different perspectives. As the film went on, it became clear that they were essentially just dicking around without really progressing, and with so much of this film implying levels of tension and build-up, it really makes the ending much more disappointing. What's frustrating about this movie is that the filmmaking presentation implies some sort of intelligent art piece, but the plot of this film is just so shallow and clumsy. There are incredibly obvious cultural commentaries in this film on racism and xenophobia, but with how little was explored on those subjects, it didn't really feel like a commentary, it just felt like a reference. It doesn't say anything interesting about these subjects, and it more or less quickly abandons them in the film. As the film goes on, there are more frequent moments with forced implied significance. It is so obviously trying to be a much more intelligent film than it is, and it fails miserably. There are points where the characters feel incredibly fake, there are annoying logical issues and frustrating character decisions, There are moments shown from two different perspectives that do not line up with each other at all, like they basically purposefully retcon their own movie just so they can force in some stupid dramatic reveal. There are lines in this film that feel like they would more appropriately belong in some shitty horror B-movie. Don't call the police, that's exactly the attention they want. Seriously? Anyway, check this one out if you want. I really loved some elements of it, but unfortunately at its core it was kind of stupid. And I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. Thank you. Did the subtitle just say effort sound? The subtitle just said effort sound. What is going on? This is a joke. This has to be a joke.